Thank you all for being here tonight. I'm Laura DiDio. I'm the chairperson of the Grafton Economic Development Commission. We're a 7-member committee. We have representatives from all types of businesses. And our mission, and there are handouts up here, by the way, and they're also available on the EDC's website on the town webpage. So we're charged, obviously, as our name says, with promoting sustainable economic development in Grafton, and we support the select board and the planning board in the implementation of economic goals and objectives. So obviously the other thing we want to do, what we do, is to support existing Grafton businesses. For example, one way we did this in a very tangible way during COVID was when businesses, particularly restaurants, dry cleaners, you name it, were really hurting. We gave out some $25 gift cards that the businesses could hand out to their customers to spur business. More lately, we're working with other Grafton agencies and other people in state and local government, and you're going to hear from one of them in just a little bit. And we're also doing outreach to a lot of our elected officials, saying, hey, what can we do? And we're constantly advocating on behalf of Grafton, okay? This town, Grafton is wonderful. I've lived here for 25 years now. And the town, 22.5 square miles, really comes together from North Grafton, near the Westboro line, to South Grafton, near Whitensville, Northbridge, etc. Our goal, we want to work with both established businesses to support them in any way we can, and to grow and to help new businesses come into town and support them as well. So one of the initiatives that we do, for example, is on our webpage, and you're going to see that anybody who wants us to highlight their business, we can do a profile for you on the webpage. You can give us your own write-up, or I'm happy, if you contact myself or any of the other members, we're happy to do a Q&A and put that up. So that's open to all businesses. We also want to do events like this so that you can come out and network informally, get to know each other, and maybe collaborate on certain events. But we want to help you promote your brand. Grafton is growing quite a bit. So from 2010 to 2020, the population grew 11%. We're up to about 20,000 right now. And by 2030, over the next 10 years, we're expecting the population to increase by another 10%. So clearly, there's a lot going on. Right now, and this is a fluid number, it's not static, Grafton has anywhere between 310 to 350 businesses. And some of those businesses change hands, some of them are new businesses, some of them have been here like Wyman Gordon and Washington Mills for over 100 years. And this town likes to eat, drink, network. We also have a big history as an equestrian and farming community. Now, unfortunately, the last dairy farm closed up about 10, 15 years ago, but there is a very thriving equestrian community here. Over 90% of our businesses in town are small businesses with 1 to 25 or 1 to 50 employees. But we've got a very business-friendly environment here, okay? Grafton is platinum rated as a community for bio and life sciences as designated by the Massachusetts Biotech Council via its BioReadies program. And you know, if you're driving around town, you see a lot of building going on, and down by the railroad station over towards Tufts, you know, we're looking to have a building, 100,000 square foot building built to attract some of those bio and life sciences businesses. But we're friendly for everything from little bistros and restaurants to nail salons, you name it, dry cleaners. We're doing expedited permitting too. We're giving you a dedicated point of contact, for companies, and we'll give you a decision for local permitting within 180 days, or sometimes even more if necessary. You can go to our webpage and you can take these handouts, and we've got a thing here where you can connect with us. It gives you all of the links and a bit about our history, contact information. So we are here for you. We do actively solicit, we want to solicit your input as to how we can help you do business. So, by all means, let us hear from you. You're going to see on our webpage, as we keep expanding that, there will be forms that you can fill out to tell us what you want to do. You can contact us via email, phone. So again, the message here is we want to help and do whatever we can. So now, without further ado, what I would like to do is introduce Kevin Burrows, who is very graciously here to tell us what he can do, to give us his overview. He is the Central Mass Regional Director for business in this area. So, welcome.
Great, thanks. Am I up?
Yeah, you're up.
All right.
You're up.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Laura. I've got a presentation, and we're going to go through it, but I'm not real big on just reading slides to people. The presentation will be available. You can get it from the Economic Development Office, so it'll be available. So some things I may read, other things I may just leave up here. I want to make this interactive a little bit. Just so I know who is in the audience, can we literally take just 2 minutes and just maybe tell me who you are? If you're a business owner, tell me the name of your business. If you're related, if you work for the town or you serve on a volunteer board, tell me that. If you're just here for the food, tell me that. But so maybe just start right here. Yeah.
Rick Anderson with Goddard Insurance. I've been there for 25 years and I head up the sales team.
Lee's a friend. So.
Hi, Anne Marie Foley. I'm on the select board, and I also have a small business called Contract Therapy Associates for my PTOT and speech services for individuals.
Great, thanks.
I'm Patrick, own the Townhouse Cafe.
Oh, fantastic.
Laurie Walker, owner of Congress Insurance Agency.
Thank you.
Carol Dauphiné, owner of Grafton Country Store.
Craig Dauphiné, Board of Selectmen.
Carl Moyson, President and CEO of Homefield Credit Union.
I'm Jennifer LaChapelle, I'm the owner of Scarlet Spa.
Fantastic.
Nicole Ethier, I'm a member of the EDC, and I'm also a realtor for Lamakia Realty.
Gentleman in the back.
I'm Todd Cahill. I run a steam machine sculpture. I'm an artist and a craftsman.
Fantastic. Thank you, sir.
I'm Dave Glusman, Sunshine Sign Corporation for 37 years, 75-year resident of Grafton, former police officer, Craig Dauphiné's bodyguard.
What's the most difficult job?
Actually, now the police job would be the most challenging.
Yeah.
Things have changed.
I'm sure. Yeah.
I'm Angela Achu. I'm an attorney and a resident here in town, and I'm a member of the EDC.
Sir?
Sure, I'm Justin Wood. I'm a member of the EDC. I'm also on the town's planning board.
Fantastic.
Stephanie Audette Connor. I'm founder and lead designer at Alwyn & Co. We're a graphic design collective.
I'm sorry, what was the name of the business?
Alwyn & Co.
Chuck Brown, I own a bakery called Break Guy Breads.
Never guessed by the shirt, right?
I'm Norman Hill, I'm president of Land Planning. Been in Grafton 41 years now, headquartered in Grafton. We have offices throughout the state.
Fantastic.
We're civil engineers and land planners.
Excellent.
I'm Carol Erskine. I'm a retired judge. I retired 2 years ago, but I own a small company that I use in Grafton called Cape Hero Books. I'm the author of 3 books and 2 children's books and 1 series books, and I work as a media consultant to the news media.
Quite the career shift from
Big
from the
career.
bench to the bookstore, huh?
Yeah.
So,
I'm Leah Cameron, Conservation Agent for the town. I'm Fiona DiMartino. I'm the Director of Planning and Community Development for the town.
Giovanni Troviano. I just started Patriot Dryer vent cleaning in Grafton.
Well, fantastic. Yeah.
And I'm Laura DiDio. I am a 25-year resident of Grafton, and I have my own consulting and writing business called Information Technology Intelligence Consulting. And I'm a former reporter, and I still do documentaries and things like that.
So, little known fact, I'm a recovering IT guy, actually. So I spent 20 years, my first 20 years of my career in information technology and management consulting. So, well, I'm actually really happy to see so many businesses here. I think some of the stuff that we'll talk about tonight you'll find of immediate value. Other things are going to be, okay, this is neat, but not applicable right now, but I'm glad I learned about it because as my business continues to grow, I may be able to leverage it, those types of things. So we're going to make this interactive. So my name is Kevin Kuros. As Laura mentioned, I'm the Central Mass Regional Director for the Mass Office of Business Development. That is the state's official economic development agency. So we report to the Secretary of Economic Development, Eric Paley, who just recently joined the Healy Driscoll administration, and we'll have a slide with him on it in a few minutes here. But our mission at MOBD, you're going to hear a lot of acronyms, that's what we do in government, right? So at the Mass Office of Business Development, or MOBD, we manage a couple tax incentive programs that businesses can leverage when they're investing in their facilities, creating jobs. Sometimes our incentives are used to encourage businesses who are benchmarking us versus maybe Research Triangle in North Carolina or other states. And so oftentimes we'll get approached in our office by site selection consultants who are saying, hey, listen, I'm working with a life sciences company. They're looking for a 50,000 square foot facility to do the following, what type of incentive package does the state have, and they'll benchmark us versus other competitive states. So that's part of what our office does as well. So besides just managing the actual couple of incentive programs, we're also kind of like the outside sales for the Commonwealth too. So it's a fun job. My background is, as I just mentioned a second ago, I grew up in information technology and management consulting, then detoured and spent 8 years in the legislature. I was a state rep. Representative Uxbridge, Blackstone, Wheelville, and Bellingham for 8 years. When I left the legislature, I joined the Baker-Polito administration in economic development. And then with the Healy Driscoll administration, I'm continuing on in that position as well. So been with the state, worked for the state 6 years now. And what's great about the job is for someone like myself who's had a variety of things in my background, I could not have written a better job description because our job requires us to work with communities all the time, right? Because as businesses are located in communities, we'll oftentimes partner with them to kind of figure out if there are local incentives available. Well, I spent 5 years on the Board of Selectmen in Uxbridge. You kind of need to be a policy wonk, which I have from my 8 years in the State House. And you need to understand business, which I had as from 20 years as an IT and management consultant. So I could not have written a better job description for a job that I wanted, and I'm delighted to be here and just kind of maybe share some insight into how the state might be able to help you all. Okay. So I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm going to have to keep turning around. We only had a 4-foot HDMI cable here, so it's a little awkward, but you can see the back of my head quite a bit here. So, we always like to start off with just a statement from the administration that we are committed to business growth. Focused on an innovation economy, and we'll talk a little bit about some changes that we made as a state to encourage more innovation companies to consider locating here or expanding here as well. Obviously, Governor Healy and Lieutenant Governor Driscoll kind of set the path for the direction. And then Secretary Paley just recently joined the administration about I think he's in his 3rd month right now. He is the 2nd Secretary of Economic Development in the Healy Driscoll administration. Some of you may have met Yvonne Howe. Anybody met her? She was a dynamo. She came in as the Secretary of Economic Development. And it's important to understand a little bit of background here because it's directly related to the core of this presentation. So whenever a new administration takes office, within the first year, they're required to present an economic development plan to the legislature. And so Secretary Howe, who came out of private industry, said, well, geez, I could either just kind of mail this in and just go through the motions on this plan, or I could really try to get my arms around this and make something very impactful. And if any of you have ever met her, she was never going to just mail anything in. So she initiated a series of about 20 listening sessions across the Commonwealth and invited businesses, academia, organized labor, chambers of commerce, regional economic development organizations, on and on and on and on. And we essentially had breakout sessions, facilitated sessions, and what it really boiled down to were 2 questions. What does the state do well, and what do we not do so well? Okay? And so after this series of sessions, and a lot of them were just general sessions open to anybody. Others were industry specific, like we did one for life sciences. We did one for English language learners, for example. So we really tried to get pretty broad input. And to kind of summarize everything that came out of that, and this is a good launching point for this presentation, what we heard was the state has a ton of really good programs. We just can't find them. Okay? And so that was kind of the genesis for what we're going to talk about this evening. So when I have my marketing hat on and I'm working with a site selection consultant who's benchmarking us versus North Carolina or Michigan or California or another state, we always include this because this is important, and it's not just superficially important. And when you talk about things like, if you're an up-and-coming business, you're seeking venture capital, #1 venture capital state in the country. On and on and on. So I'm not going to read these to you, but just take just a second and read through some of these things and just think how impactful of a message this sends when we're talking to business brokers who are saying, geez, should I recommend my client locate here in the Commonwealth or in some other state? Give you a second to look at this. So a lot of number ones, a lot of number twos, and I saw this time, I'm like, holy cow, we're 114th in education, and I realized that was the number of colleges and universities, which also is impactful as well. And what's important, and what we're trying to accomplish is, we have tens of thousands of kids come to Massachusetts every year, and they stay for 4 years, and then they have an option where they're going to go. Do they stay, or do they go back to where they came from, or whatever? We're really trying to build an environment and a culture to keep kids here once they're ready to graduate and kind of integrate them into the workforce. So if you pay attention to, if you're a policy wonk like some of us are, in November of last year, as a follow-on to the economic development plan, each administration has to submit an economic development bill. And so that was called Mass Leads. It passed in November of last year, and it did a lot of stuff. If you recall, 15 years ago maybe, during the Patrick administration, there was a creation of the Life Sciences Center, and they dedicated $1 billion to support development of the life sciences industry in the Commonwealth. And at the time, I was, I think, philosophically opposed to the notion of the government picking winners and losers in industries, and I thought that it was a huge gamble, and I was wrong. I mean, we lead the world. We are the epicenter of the world in life sciences. So something I wanted to share is that first box there. So the Mass Leads Act includes, it's similar to what we did with life sciences 15 years ago, $1 billion worth of funding to encourage more climate tech related companies to invest here, do their research and development. We're leading the world in intellectual capital as far as all the colleges and universities. And if we can encourage businesses to work on climate-friendly, renewable building products, those types of things. There's a company out in Pittsfield that has, I didn't know this, but concrete is, I think, the second leading producer of carbon emissions, the manufacturing of concrete beyond like automobiles. And so there's a company out in I think Pittsfield called Sublime that has come up with essentially zero carbon concrete, those types of things. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's in Holyoke, Mass.
It's in Holyoke, yeah.
Yeah, and it's probably, I don't know if it's number 2, but it's the second most used material in the world next to water. So that's part of the reason why it generates a lot of carbon. It's because there's so much of it that's
Right,
used.
right. Thank you for the,
I'm a concrete guy.
Oh, okay, there you go. So,
41 years.
Yeah.
So I didn't say that in my introduction.
Have you used the Sublime product yet?
No, it's still in development.
Yeah, they're doing trial manufacturing.
Yeah.
That facility in Holyoke is
Right.
Is to produce enough to basically.
Yeah, there's been a few projects where they've used a little bit of it.
Yeah.
Just, there's been a lot of testing with some of our industry, partners, but
Yeah.
it's a long way from.
Sure. But I mean, but that's a good example, though. And that predated this $1 billion investment. So Sublime actually came through a program that our office runs, the Economic Development Incentive Program, to incentivize job creation here in the Commonwealth as well. So that even predates that $1 billion. But again, the key point here with the Mass Leads Act, we're reinvesting in life sciences. We're trying to but really bolster climate tech. We're probably second or third in the nation already. California clearly is in first relative to the climate tech industry, but we're like right up there. And we think this could be the impetus, just like we did with life sciences, to kind of put us over the top there as well. Again, that's reauthorization on the life sciences piece. And then really big focus on AI and and future of, geez, I don't even know where we're going with AI. I mean, it's exciting, frightening, opportunity, threatening, all at the same time, and I think we'll all kind of learn a lot about this as it continues to evolve. So we have this logo, Team Massachusetts, and it's not just lip service. These are all the agencies, not even all, these are a sampling of the agencies that our office works with on a regular basis. So starting at the top left, the executive office, which is where our office sits. MOBD is our office. The Clean Energy Center, Mass Econ. This is interesting. Mass Econ, oftentimes, I mentioned how we're approached by site selection consultants. Mass Econ is our site selection partner. So they're a nonprofit. And when someone comes and say, hey, we need a 50,000 square foot facility with 30-foot ceilings, access to water, sewer, et cetera, we immediately call them. They'll put together a list of properties that are either immediately available, pad-ready sites that can support that type of development, or facilities that are going to become available that they know that the existing tenant is leaving, that type of thing. So they're a key member of our team, and I'm on the phone with them probably 3-4 times a week. Mass Life Sciences Center, can't say enough about what they've done over the past decade or so. Mass Ventures is the state's venture capital funding source, actually. So how many people here even knew that the state had a venture capital funding wing? Yeah, see again, we have one, fantastic. So, the small business development centers, so those are run by the SBA, the Small Business Administration. They're affiliated with universities. I believe there are 7 centers across the Commonwealth. Closest one is Clark University, so it's just down the road here. Fantastic resource. If you've not engaged with them, I would encourage you to do so. Commonwealth Corporation runs the Workforce Training Fund grant program. Has anyone ever taken advantage of the Workforce Training Fund? Fantastic, great to hear that. Here's a tip for you. If you have payroll and you make payroll every 2 weeks, you're paying into the Workforce Training Fund. So you should try to get some money back out of it. What happens is, when you make payroll, you also contribute to the state's unemployment insurance fund, right? Mm-hmm. At the state level, a small portion of that is diverted into a Workforce Training Fund account that is used for matching grant reimbursement for workforce development. So whether you know you're paying into it or not, you're paying into it. So I literally encourage every business I talk to that has employees that they need to do training with to at least explore the Workforce Training Fund program, because it's, it's free money, it's your money, and you might as well ask for something back. Mass Talent is kind of a rebranding, but it's an umbrella that sits on top of all the workforce development programs, including the Workforce Training Fund program, Registered Apprenticeship program, a number of other programs as well. Department of Early Ed also is involved as part of the team Massachusetts. The Tech Collaborative has, holy cow, 5 or 6 different divisions and dozens of programs that are available. And then Mass Development is the state's finance authority, i.e. the state's bank. They're also famous because they run Devens. So they real quick history on Devens. Everybody familiar with Devens? I'm not too far away. Can I see some hands here? So Devens is an Army base that was enormous. And a bunch of years back, the Department of Defense said, listen, we're going to be scaling that down. Would the state like that land for future development? Of course, we said yes. And then you find that for all the good that the DoD does, being a great steward of the environment is not always one of them, right? And so we inherited a bunch of land that had some challenges. Had buried munitions and things like that that you don't encounter on typical parcels that you're trying to develop. And so the Mass Development was created. It was the state's finance authority, but also the land bank. They were merged together ostensibly to redevelop Devens. And if you've been through there in the past decade, it is unbelievable what's going on up there, right? And that was just a wasteland essentially when we inherited it. So Mass Development, it worked so well at Devens that the state has said, quite some time ago now, you know what, the products and services that you offer at Mass Development, we should make that available anywhere in the Commonwealth. So they're a very important trusted partner. They've got loan programs for equipment purchases, for construction. They have an interesting program, we'll talk about it very quickly in a few minutes, called Biz Empower, which is a grant program that small businesses can leverage. They used to do only fixed asset lending, so buildings and equipment. But last year, we took 2 separate organizations at the state level, Mass Development and Mass Growth Capital, and we combined the 2 of them. Mass Growth Capital used to provide operating capital. So, if you had, geez, I have this really big contract I just landed, but I can't even afford to buy the raw materials to produce the product for this big contract I just landed. We go to Mass Growth Capital, they would do a very short-term loan, help you with operating capital so you can capture that opportunity, and then you pay them back and then you move on. So what we did last year was merge those 2 organizations. So one-stop shop now for financing in the state. Mass Development does both fixed asset lending and operating capital. So prior to during the listening sessions that I told you about, this was the model that was in place. So you have a business and you want to maybe get some tax credits for creating jobs. So you would talk to our office at MOBD, right? And oh, by the way, you're going to do some international business. So you're going to talk to MOITI, that's the Mass Office of International Trade and Investment. And then, you might need some help with your business plan, so why don't you connect with the Small Business Development Center in the bottom left there, And then maybe you're doing some deep tech research and looking for a grant there, well then you connect with Mass Tech. On and on and on. You see where I'm going with this? So each of those relationships had to be managed independently by the business. And you're also running your business while you're doing this. So the notion that this is an efficient way to do business is probably not a real strong notion, right? I mean, this is the crux of what we try to do with the business front door, is take this and improve it. So, business front door. October of 23, after the 20-stop listening tour, the Secretary initiated a project, and a handful of us, I was fortunate enough, because I had an IT background, and I worked for economic development, to be involved with the development of the business front door. And we put out an RFP, solicited input from a number of consulting firms, and awarded a contract to Deloitte to help us develop the application. But essentially, with all those stakeholders that I showed you, all the different organizations, we met multiple times a week for a better part of a year to put the business front door together. Okay? And we try to make it flexible and easy to use. And I'll give you an example for flexibility. If you have a small business and you just have a basic question, how do I register my business with the Secretary of State, or those types of more blocking and tackling type questions, we have an inquiry track in there where essentially you register your business, you click on the inquiry track, you type your question, that goes out to our team. We have a team who's done nothing for the last year except for establish relationships with almost every single state agency. They're also compiling an FAQ document so that the common questions we'll be able to get back to right away. And but the inquiry track is exactly that. Ask a question and we'll either get you the answer if we already have it, or we'll try to connect you with someone who can get you the answer. Okay? The more extensive track is what's called the resource track. You'll see this in a slide in a second. And that's where you tell us what you're trying to accomplish. I'm in a manufacturing business, and I need to put a 20,000 square foot addition onto my building because my business is growing. I need to buy $500,000 worth of very specialized equipment. I'm going to be hiring 20 people to run this equipment. We're going to be doing some export of the finished product. What do you have to help? Okay. So what happens is you tell us what you're doing. After you've registered your business in the business front door, you tell us what you're trying to accomplish. You're then assigned a navigator who is a real person. It's not an AI bot. We have AI tools on the back end, and there soon will be a public-facing AI tool, probably within the next year. But you're assigned an actual person who's going to read what you're trying to accomplish, perhaps reach out to you if they have any questions, and then we as navigators, I'm a navigator, I've got essentially a drop-down list of all the programs that the state has. I kind of click on the ones that are appropriate for your business, drag them, and they show up in your dashboard. So you have a unified dashboard that kind of, here's all the programs that might be beneficial to my business. I'm not guaranteeing that you're going to qualify or be approved for a grant or whatever, but at least it's a consolidated way of managing your interactions with the Commonwealth, which if that's all we did, that I think would be super beneficial. But before you even see that, I as a navigator, I don't know all the nuances of all the programs. So if I recommend a program, before it even shows up in your dashboard, it goes out to the program manager from the appropriate organization that runs that program, and they'll do a sanity check. Based on what the business told us, and based on the program that you just recommended, yeah, I agree, you should share that with them, or no, it's just not a fit because whatever the reasons. Like maybe a program is only eligible for manufacturers and their service company or something like that, right? So before you even see anything in your dashboard, there's two sets of eyes on it. So what we're trying to do is A, make it easier, and B, waste less of your time by having you chasing things that you're not going to be a fit for, you're going to be denied for. And again, there's no guarantee that just because something shows up in your dashboard that it's free money. I mean, that's not the way the world works, unfortunately. But you can feel pretty confident that at least the recommendations that we're making are probably going to provide some value to your business. So, in the business front door, there's a couple summary pages, and if all we did was took an inventory of all the programs that were out there and then aggregated them all onto pages like this that made it easier to find, all of the working capital bonds and loan programs. That's a drop down that then explodes and shows you all those programs. That would be, I think, a huge benefit. But again, as I talked about, like the dashboard. We'll get to the dashboard in a bit. So let me do this. So, no, I'm going to go back. So obviously the business front door is designed to support startup businesses, emerging businesses, mature businesses, and sometimes even declining businesses. There are labor and workforce programs that help offset the cost of perhaps if you have to lay people off or do reduction in force. So we're essentially there to support the entire life cycle. But again, they're grouped together by topic and category. If you want to talk about equipment loans, equipment grants, those types of things. Okay. So some example programs. I mentioned this one briefly, Biz Empower. So if you have a small business and you need something specific for your business, I need a $30,000 piece of equipment. This traditionally was a crowdsource matching grant program, where if friends and family raised X amount, the state would match that 2 to 1 with this grant. The program has evolved every year that it's been reauthorized by the legislature. The new program will be announced in January. I don't know what it's going to look like this year. It has been reauthorized. I don't know what the parameters are yet. But in the past, it's been, you have to have at least a handful of private investors, crowdsource fund that, and then the state would match. And the first year we did it, I think we matched 2 to 1. The second year, I think it was a 1 to 1 match. But so it has been reauthorized. It'll be opening back up, I believe, in January. Okay. Workforce Training Fund Program. I mentioned that already. You're paying into it. Get something back out of it. And then EDIP is a program that our agency runs. And I'll give you an example. So in that prior theoretical example I gave you, I'm going to add a 20,000-foot addition onto my manufacturing business, buy some equipment, and hire 20 people. So you as a business owner would apply for EDIP credits, and our board meets quarterly to approve the credits. And essentially, we award a tax credit per job created. So you're going to commit to create, over the next 3 years, I'm going to be adding whatever 5 people a year for the first 2 years, and 10 people in year 3 to add up to 20 jobs. You may get an award of $10,000 to $15,000 per job created that you can use to offset your tax liability to the state. So real quick math, 20 times 15, $300,000. It's not insignificant, and if that means you could buy another piece of equipment or hire a couple of additional people or whatever you choose to use it for, or pay down debt that you have or whatever. And what's really interesting, I mentioned earlier that we're trying to be an innovation economy, or that we're trying to recognize that we're an innovation economy. The credits that we used to give as part of this program were what were called traditional tax credits. And what that means is you could use them to offset 50% of the taxes that you owed the state, but not more than 50%. So say at the end of the year you owed, say, $50,000 when you file your taxes. You can only use $25,000 worth of credits to bring that $50K down to $25K. If we awarded you $100,000 worth of credits, because we gave you $10,000 per person and you hired 10 people, you wouldn't even be able to use all of our credits. You'd only be able to use $25,000 of our credits because you only owed the state $50,000, right? So in that Mass Leads Act that passed in November, we changed the form of these credits. They are now what are called refundable credits. And essentially, refundable credits are as good as cash. So if we were to award you $100,000 worth of credits, and you owed the state $50,000 worth of taxes, you would get a check back from the state for $50,000 when you filed your taxes. Okay? So that's super significant when you look at us being an innovation economy, because here's why. A lot of companies will spend 5 years, 10 years developing a product. A lot of research and development. I mean, they probably begged, borrowed, and stole some money to get off the ground. They had some seed funding from venture capital or whatever. But they also accrued a ton of startup debt. And so finally, after 10 years of R&D, they're ready to commercialize a product. They're going to bring it to market. It's going to be this phenomenal product. They're going to hire a bunch of people, right? Well, they have no tax liability to the state because they're not profitable. And until they pay off that startup debt, they have no tax liability to the state, right? Well, those jobs that they're creating that are real jobs that people are going to be able to support their families with, we couldn't incentivize those jobs because our credits, if we give you credits and we don't owe any taxes, we haven't given you anything, right? So when we passed that bill in November, our credit pool was expanded to be refundable credits so that we can then say, oh, innovative company, we understand that you're not going to be profitable for a year or two because of where you've come from with your startup debt, right? But you're going to be creating 50 or 100 jobs, so let us help you. And so with our credits now being refundable credits, we're really trying to strive to support like innovation and businesses that may have, you know, some startup debt, but now we're finally hitting that curve where they're getting ready to take off with their business. So Business Front Door. Bonus award for the first person who registers via their phone while I'm talking. I did this presentation up in Grafton. No, I'm sorry, up in, I'm in Grafton. Where was I? Gardner. I knew it was a G. Yeah. And I heard my phone buzz while I was actually giving the presentation, and I checked my phone after the presentation, and someone had registered for the Business Front Door while I was talking to them. So super easy. Mass.gov/BFD. Anybody ever heard that acronym used for something else? BFD? Maybe big freaking deal, right? Yeah, that was not accidental, okay? Because we really do think it's a big deal to have the Business Front Door available. Again, that was not coincidental or accidental. So, as part of the theme, I can attest to that. So you're going to register in the Business Front Door. If it takes you more than 10 minutes to do, you're doing something wrong. It's that simple. You're going to register. It will require a mass.gov email address. If you're already registered with the DOR, you already have one to get to your BizConnect account at DOR. If you don't have one, it adds a minute to the process. Okay, it's really is that easy. Once you're registered, essentially we've got some AI built into the product that says, oh, the zip code you put in for your business, your Central Mass business, you get assigned Kevin as your navigator. Okay. The only exceptions are, we have a couple of industry verticals. If you identify yourself as a life sciences company, you'll be assigned a navigator from the Life Sciences Center as opposed to your regional director from MOBD. And there are one or two other exceptions like that. But for the most part, you're entering the Business Front Door, you're going to tell us about your business, right? And then once you're in, here's what I was talking about earlier. I just have a basic question, ask us a question, we'll get a team that will kind of chase down those answers for you. Or explore our resources, okay? Oh yeah, the first thing, as soon as you are registered, like my name, you'd have a card, my contact card there. So I have business cards here, I'm not giving them out tonight, all right? You want to reach me, sign up, all right? And you'll get my business card right there on your dashboard. So get the guidance you need, tell us what you need, answer a few questions, and we will point you in the right direction, all right? So essentially, you know, you're going to fill out a bunch of stuff about your business. Your navigator's going to take a look at that and then assign some resources that might be appropriate for you. Your dashboard is then going to show things like, oh, mass development, the Emerging Technology Fund. Now, why we have in this example the Emerging Technology Fund for Perfect Pizza LLC, I'm not quite sure. Okay, so I'll talk to the person who put this presentation together. But there are other, you know, relevant things that could be appropriate. For example. You know, the Executive Office of Economic Development runs a vacant storefront program. So there are opportunities to get some matching monies from the state if you move into a vacant storefront that is supported by a community that has opted in to our program. Right? And then you're given the opportunity, and you get like these little pills will tell you like what this particular tile means, what action is needed on this one. Okay? So you'll click on that, you'll get a pop-up like this. Oh, are you going to apply for the Economic Development Incentive Program? Are you interested? Yes, no, or maybe not. Or maybe not. I don't know right now. Even if you say no, you can always bring it back because you don't know what you don't know sometimes. You say, oh, geez, this is not a good fit for me. And then after a subsequent conversation, you realize you can always bring that back. So it's not a problem. And again, for each of the agencies that you may be connected with, you're going to have a contact card. So we have me as your navigator. You'll have someone from Mass Econ to help with site selection. You'll have someone from another office or whatever. Okay. And then when you're ready to apply, so back here, you're like, yeah, I'm going to be adding 20 jobs. And so I want to pursue those tax credits that I just spent a few minutes talking about earlier, right? So yes, I do want to explore this resource. So the next piece is the application center. So on your screen in the Business Front Door, you see your dashboard, profile of users, documents, and then applications. Click on the applications tab. It would show you the actual application that you can enter for the Economic Development Incentive Program. where we're going with this, we're at version 1.0 right now, so we didn't try to boil the ocean and do everything at once, otherwise we'd still be working on it, right? We'd rather have it in your hands. So right now, there's only a handful of applications that are built directly into the business front door. Long-term vision, Common App, for those of you that had kids that went to college, or who filled out the Common App yourself, right? Collect common information that can then be shared with all the appropriate organizations. They may have some additional questions that are specific, you know, if it's mass development, they care about your balance sheet. If it's job creation, I just care about how many jobs you're creating. So there's different information required for different programs. But long term, we want to get to like a Common App type approach where fill out your general information, your business, your EIN, your all that kind of stuff. Once, you know, your SIC code, those types of things, and then fill out specific stuff based on where you're going with it. We're not there yet, but we'll get there. So, but again, so you know, you fill out the application here, and then it'll be processed. So, benefits of the business front door: designated point of contact. You'll have a navigator, a real person. More easily contact Team MA. Tailored list of business opportunities. I told you already. There's 2 sets of eyes on tasks before you even see them in your dashboard. So we're really trying to not send you on a path of apply to these 15 things, you know, and maybe one of them you'll get. You know, I mean, it still could be the case depending on the nature of the program, but at least I think you can feel comfortable that anything that gets recommended is something that's viable for you. You still have to build your business case because almost all of our programs are oversubscribed, where we have more applicants than we have, you know, money available. Okay. Pathway to ask questions and flag issues, and we're just trying to streamline the ability to do business in the Commonwealth. So that's it. I was in send mode for half an hour or more, so I need to breathe. So, talk to me. Questions? Sure.
Just a couple of pointers. What can Grafton as a town do to attract some of these life sciences and bio businesses, clean energy? That's something we've been grappling with for a while.
No, I mean, the fact we're already platinum recognized, I mean, you know, and platinum, for those in the room who aren't familiar with that, means essentially you can do life sciences by right. So it doesn't require like a, you know, special permit or a waiver from the ZBA, those types of things. So not every community, you know, has gone that far that you build it into your zoning, your bylaws, and probably your town charter, or whatever the case may be. So I mean, you're already doing the right things there. Make sure members of your economic development team attend the life sciences, you know, events. Anytime you see something going on, you know, make sure you're out there. If you have properties that are town-owned, you can get them registered with MassEcon. Remember I mentioned MassEcon as our site selection partners? Mm-hmm. So they have something on their website called the Ready 100 list. And at any given time, they'll have up to 100 properties listed there that are either pad-ready, fully permitted sites ready for development, or buildings that are immediately available or will soon be available. So if the town owns parcels that you want to see redeveloped, you can list them with MassEcon for like a couple $100 a year. I mean, it's a trivial amount of money. Or if you're working with a developer who owns a parcel that they'd like to have increased visibility on, they can also list them with MassEcon. So that really gets on the radar screen pretty quickly as well. You know? But I mean, you're already a big step in the right direction by having gone through the effort over the past, I'm guessing, decade to become platinum certified. So that's a big step there. Other questions? Or? Yeah, Craig.
One of the things we struggle with is we have some existing buildings, old businesses that are closed, kind of abandoned.
Yeah.
Is there a state agency that could help us with, you know, with the property owner, you know, facilitate a deal, whether, you know, to find new business to go in, to, you know, clean, sell the property, to, is there, you know?
From a marketing perspective, not so much, but from a site prep, so there's a program that Mass Development has called UPP, the Underutilized Property Program, that has some funding available. And I believe the applicant has to be the municipality. So if it's privately owned, I don't know whether it works or not. This would be one of the ones where I would have to defer to the program expert to let you know on that. There is an abandoned building tax deduction that is available to anybody that takes occupancy of a building that's been vacant for more than 75% vacant for 2 years or more. And that can just be done. Essentially, you get it certified by our board, recognized by our board, and when they file their taxes, they can take that deduction. Again, that's a deduction, not a credit, so it's not as beneficial, but it helps. It all helps, right? Also, manufacturers in the Commonwealth, just not even having to come through a program, they can get a 3% investment tax credit for any investment they make in building a facility, for the most part, any fixed asset investment that they make. And if they partner with an educational institution, like, okay, we're gonna, we're creating manufacturing jobs, but we're gonna bring manufacturing techs from Quincy or WPI or something like that, that 3% investment can get nuanced up a couple percent, I think up to 5% or something like that. So I mean, there are tools there that can be beneficial.
How would I'm sorry, how would maybe the storefront scenario, that the empty storefront might come to play as well?
Yeah. So I should have checked before I came out here actually, but I don't know whether Grafton applied or not. The way the program works is from our pool of tax credits that we have at MOBD to distribute, which includes our refundable credits, we've set aside, I think it's $500,000 of refundable credits for, and it might be more than that actually, but for communities to request access to. And so communities had to put in a request, and the community can get up to $50,000 to award to businesses that are taking over a space that's been vacant for 6 months or more. Okay, a couple of parameters. It's got to be like a retail type business. So like the one-person CPA office on the second floor, like wouldn't qualify. We want walkable streets, we want foot traffic, that type of thing. Restaurants, art galleries.
An old church.
What's that?
An old church.
That could be a fit, yeah. So those types of things, it's requisite that the town opt in before the program starts. And the awards were just made like a few weeks ago, so I don't know whether Grafton put an application in or not. But it used to be very, very regimented, and we would match up to $10,000. The town had to provide something, and we would match up to $10,000. The program has changed that the municipal match is not a requirement. We still love to see it, but essentially you have a lot more freedom to do with that $50,000, up to $50,000, what you want to do with it. For example, I was part of the review team that looked at all the applications that came in from all the communities. It was very clear that some communities wanted to do $10,000, $5,000 micro grants to just help with a new awning and some signage or something like that. It also was clear that other communities might want to do maybe one business a year and give them $50,000 to really help with fixtures and fittings and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot more flexibility in the program now, but I don't know whether you guys are in or not. So,
question for you, who would be the individual within the town that would apply for that?
So it comes in through what's called the Community One Stop, which is a portal similar to the BFD that was put together about 5 years ago to make it easier for communities to apply, so for MassWorks grants and all that kind of stuff. So it's one of the many things you can apply for through the Community One Stop, which opens up again, in the spring, closes in the summer, and the awards are made in the fall. So all those awards, like MassWorks grants awards and all that kind of stuff, we just announced, I think last week or the week before. And then the vacant storefront awards are also announced about a month ago. So, but yeah, so it's a once a year cycle. Okay.
Yeah, I can also chime in.
Yeah, no, go right ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, any sort of technical assistance or questions that anyone has about any sort of grant, I'm happy to help and get you up and running and apply. Actually, that underutilized program properties grant.
With Mass Development?
With Mass Development, yes, that you were speaking to earlier. I did apply for that, for the Bolette Plaza property, that building to the rear, I think the one Hawthorne. It was a kind of public-private partnership, yep. But we were awarded.
And the town has to do the application, even if it's a public-private partnership.
Yes,
right?
So the town submitted the application in partnership with the owner, and then the owner was basically the designated point of contact from there on out, once we got the award, and worked directly with a representative from Mass Development to upgrade the property. So there's a lot of opportunities like that my office, as well as the town administrator's office, is happy to help with.
Yeah, and Mass Dev also has a site readiness program, if you could explore that, if you ever need to explore that at all. But there's a site in town that has some challenges, whatever they may be, water sewer access, maybe, some contamination or whatever it might be, in order to make it more marketable or more developable, the site readiness program. And it doesn't even need to be truly actionable items like actual cleanup. It could be engineering study to recommend what to do next with this, those types of things. So, I mean, there are a lot of great programs like that as well.
Yeah, that's a common issue that we see during like property acquisition, disposition processes, where there's a lot of really dirty dirt that you didn't see the first time, and then it prolongs the process, so that's helpful to know.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry.
One of the things I just wanted to comment on that I think would be helpful for you to understand, and I've been in business a long time. I call it the theory-reality disconnect.
Yeah.
I think listening to your presentation tonight, the state has done really a good job of putting together some forward programs that are very helpful to business. But what does happen is, as it trickles down, you have aspirations to expand, add folks. When you get to communities, and I've worked in probably 200 communities throughout the state, doing sign permits, and Grafton is a good example of the regulatory requirements, and the difficulty in navigating is so arduous that it really, really, really becomes incredibly frustrating. And that's the reality of it. And when you talk to guys, we've only got 35 people, so we're not a large business, but when you really get into the inner workings of being able to do something that you can get into these programs, it is an ass pain. And I am telling you, if you don't have the resources within your company to dedicate someone to navigate it,
that's always a challenge. And I live in Uxbridge, and we were the second community to identify an expedited permitting site in the entire state, right? You know what the site was? The Amazon site right at the intersection of 16 and 146.
Sure.
That was an expedited permitting site 15 years ago, right? That building went up 2 years ago.
I did the sign work there, and that project was forever.
But again, I mean, that's a perfect example to underscore your point, though, is, as Tip O'Neill once said, all politics is local. I mean, it's still, you need that local liaison and the fact that, as Laura mentioned, you'll have a single point of contact for, expedited permitting and other things here in the town. Those are all steps in the right direction.
Yes.
And oftentimes, what's really interesting is when we're doing these comparative analyses for consultants, out-of-state consultants who are saying, hey, what do you have for us? We'll always encourage, if they're looking at a particular town, for the town to go on the record as saying, we will give you a single point of contact for your project.
Yeah.
You can't even imagine how far that goes with businesses, because
it's huge.
Yeah.
In Worcester, I have just a sign permit now. I have to go to 7 boards for review. I did a climate-controlled warehouse with the signs 40 feet above grade. I called after 6 weeks of waiting for the permit, and I said, where is it? They said it's stuck in floodplain. I said, if we got to worry about floodplain, you got a big problem. But it does become...
Your point's well taken, yeah.
It becomes, you look at these programs and you say, this is great, but when you get into trying to actually implement what you need to do to benefit from the program, the cities and towns are really not as in sync with business development. And, when the chairperson says, with all due respect, that Grafton is very business friendly, they are not. And when you have to navigate through a prior building inspector who was so incredibly difficult to deal with that a investigative journalist flew out from Washington to do an article on him, it becomes extremely frustrating. And I don't know how the state ever could weigh in and fix that, but as it trickles down, it gets much more difficult. And if economic development could do something for the local businesses, get some more friendly boards. The boards are difficult. Some of the people, like Leah is sitting here tonight, I've just had interaction with her at my house. She's been incredibly helpful and a very valuable resource to the town. And you know, if you can get more of those type of people, the select board with Brooke that used to be on it, and Craig, these folks are invaluable to the town, and I don't know how the state blends.
So I mean, quite candidly, like, we will get asked questions from site selection consultants. Like, we are considering the following 5 communities, maybe 3 cities and 2 towns, something like that, to potentially locate a facility. Which do you feel are business friendly? We're not going to answer that question directly, because we're not going to show bias. I mean, you know, we're city and town agnostic. We want those jobs in Massachusetts, okay? But what we can share is this community has participated in the TIF program in the past. Okay. There's no better predictor of future performance than past performance, right? Yep. So that's public information. So we're happy to share that. We're not going to say, don't talk to this town because the town manager is going to stonewall you. We would never do that, yep. Right? But we will share opportunities where, oh yeah, you're asking about Marlboro? Yeah, we've done 6 TIFs with them in the past 2 years. Okay, that's one of the communities you're looking at. Yeah, they're very, you know, TIF friendly, that type of thing. So we'll share data. We won't share opinion.
Okay.
You talk about a single point of contact for, say, a developer that's coming in and how valuable that is. Is that usually a town employee, or is that an elected official? Is it somebody from the board?
It's usually from either the town manager's office or the mayor's office if it's a city, or the planning department. You know, somebody could be an ombudsman, you know, who has some political connectivity in city or town hall, but also understands the processes that need to be executed. So,
one more question. Does anybody in your office, I'm sure this, I don't know what department would be, that works with private universities across the state on developing, say, economically driven projects? And I know it's a very specific question, but we have, you know, Tufts Veterinary School of Medicine here, and the town applied for a grant probably 20 years ago to build a road specifically to develop biotechnology, right? Tax generating businesses to come to town to kind of complement the university and to also complement Centec Park across the street, and been incredibly unsuccessful in developing that. A lot of it is because of the deal that was made with Tufts, because Tufts owns the property. So we're trying to free that up, right, so that we can attract some businesses into that
there's
development.
not, I'd say, like a blanket program or strategy, but each of our partners on Team Massachusetts that are industry specific have their own like liaisonships. So Mass Life Sciences works with like all the big university, you know.
I know DCAM is involved with this, the leases with DCAM. And
And DCAM is more just the capital asset management component. You know, less incentive driven and more just asset management based.
You must talk to these universities. I mean, you must have a
I'll be at WPI tomorrow with the secretary actually. So I mean, we're always involved in some way, shape, or form. You know, with universities, but more specifically like Mass Bio or Mass Life Sciences or Mass Tech, they've got partnerships and they've got grant programs, which is pretty interesting. A company may apply for a grant program in conjunction with a research partner. The money actually flows to the research partner, even though the company is the ultimate beneficiary of it, because they're going to get some equipment out of it or whatever. So there's tons of these collaborative type programs that pass through universities and all that kind of stuff too. You know, and then like at UMass Lowell, they've got a center now that they just established right outside the Air Force Base that is an incubator for DoD related businesses. Okay, so there's some state funding going into that. So it runs a gamut though. But I mean, it's not so much at the executive office level where we sit as it is in the quasis that are industry focused. You tend to see more of that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else?
Thought you did a great job.
Awesome. Oh, thank you.
Great, yeah.
You made it interesting.
So, who signed up for Business on Tour while I was standing here? Anybody?